In the last class, we studied about the unemployment and its impact, and Kuhn's law we have completed. In this class, we will complete the inflation and its impact. This is the last unit and the last chapter. What we are going to discuss in this concept is definition, types, and its impact. One of the application is Phillips curve. So these are the things that we are going to discuss today. I have given 2-3 definition about the inflation. First given by Carl Born. This is the simplest definition for inflation. Too much of money chasing too few goods. That is huge money trying to capture the market. So we have to pay a high price. That's what he trying to mean. One more definition by Birkin and Wade. Inflation is an upward movement in an average level of prices. Its opposite is deflation, a downward movement of average level of prices. What you trying to do? Inflation is paying more money for a product. Deflation means paying less money for the product. That's what he trying to mean. So the boundary between the inflation and inflation is the price stability. How we are maintaining that there will be some percentage of inflation or there will be some percentage of inflation. If we try to make it as zero, then it is called price stability. Then one more definition by Samuelson. Inflation is a rise in the general price level. That's what his definition. This definition holds good for all the occasions. And the last definition by Peterson, the word inflation in the broadest possible sense refers to any increase in general price level which is sustained and non-seasonal in character. In this definition, he tried to mention that how we are maintaining the price stability, how the seasonal or non-seasonal character is influencing the price level of the product. So when we trying to identify what level of price increase for the product, then it is called nothing but it is inflation rate. So now we are going to the types of inflation. So there are two type of classification. One is based on the speed or intensity. Another one is based on the causes. On the basis of causes, the inflation is divided into 5 categories. The first one is called currency inflation. This type of inflation is because of printing more currency notes and it is has been circulated in the economy. So because of this, we have some inflation rate that is called currency inflation. Then one more cause is there. It is called credit inflation. Being a profit-making institution, both commercial banks or industrial bank or non-banking financial institution, they will lend more loans and advances to the public. Because of that, there will be too much of money will chase the too few goods. So this kind of inflation, we used to call it as credit inflation. That is, financial institution have lent more money or advancing more loans or the public is keep on borrowing more. Because of this more circulation of money, there will be an inflation. That inflation we used to call it as credit inflation. The third type is induced by the government. When the budget is implemented, definitely it will reflect in economic indicators. Particularly, there will be a deficit when expenditure exceeds the revenue. In order to augment that particular gap, the government will try to circulate more money. This particular action is implemented through monetary policy. The government may ask the central government to print additional money, and a lot of monetary policy instruments will be implemented. Because of that, there will be some increasing price level for the product. This particular type we used to call deficit-induced inflation. For example, suppose 2020 budget, before that they will plan what are the expenditures to be incurred in that particular calendar year or academic year. Based on that, they will frame the fiscal policy, so the revenue will be lesser and expenditure will be more. That particular difference we have to get from the public through taxation. That particular gap should be augmented through monetary policy instruments like bank rate policy, repo rate, and other economic indicators. This will induce more circulation in the economy. Because of that, there will be some inflation. That inflation we used to call it as deficit induced inflation. These are all the common type, but the main type is these two. When there is a heavy demand, definitely the price will go up. This type of inflation, we used to call it as demand pull inflation. One more thing, because there is a cost of production is more and material cost is more and we incur unforeseen expenditure, all these things, the average cost will increase. Because of cost of production, when the price is increased, definitely this type of inflation we used to call it as cost push inflation. Normally, if you see the old books, only these two types will be there. Because of demand, there is an inflation, means it is called demand pull inflation. Because of the cost, there is an inflation, it is called cost push inflation. When public demanding more, definitely demand is more. Because of that, there is a higher price level. That type of inflation we used to call it as demand pull. The raw material, labor, and overhead costs, and other government taxes, all these things. Because of that, the cost of production is increasing. Because of that cost of production, when the price is fixed in a higher level, then it is called cost push inflation. So there are 5 types of inflation based on the causes. One is currency inflation. Number 2, credit inflation. Number 3, deficit inflation. Number 4, demand pull inflation. And the last one is cost. So this is based on the process of inflation. The intensity of the inflation, we are classifying inflation into 4 categories. The first one is called creeping inflation. It's very mild one. It will be 2% to 3% when the inflation rate is there. We used to call it this particular inflation as creeping inflation. When it crosses 3, then it is not creeping, it is walking. Creeping na tavaraduma, walking na nadakathu. That is up to 3%, it is creeping inflation. More than 3% means then it becomes walking inflation. And when it is reaches 20 or more than 20%, it is called galloping inflation. Otherwise it is called hyperinflation. Up to 100 means it is galloping. More than 100 means 200 percentage of increase in price. Suppose 10 rupees or price இருந்தானா அது 20 ரூபாய்க்கு மேல வித்தானா 200 price 200% increase in price. I hope you understand. So ஒரு 10 ரூபாய் பொருளை 500 ரூபாய்க்கு வாங்கினா 10%, அதுவே தப்பு, அதுவே வாக்கிங் இன்ஃப்ளேஷன்ல வந்துரும். சப்போஸ் 12 ரூபாய்க்கு மேல வித்தானா அது கேலப்பிங் இன்ஃப்ளேஷன். சப்போஸ் 20 ரூபாயை கிராஸ் பண்ணிச்சுன்னா அது ஹைப்பர் இன்ஃப்ளேஷன். இதெல்லாம் தவிர இந்த 4 லெவல் பிளஸ் அந்த பக்கம் காசஸ் ஆஃப் இன்ஃப்ளேஷன், how the government is handling this. So there are many worse situation has happened in the world economy. The government find very difficult to face the inflationary situation, as there will be number of policies or strategies to face the inflation. Maximum what they can do, they can adjust the tax rate, or they can ask the financial institution not to borrow more money, not to lend more money, and they will purposely not to circulate more money. For that, they will increase the repo rate. So these are all the some of the anti-inflationary policies. Some policies are monetary based, some policies are non-monetary based. So the government action is divided into 2 categories. One is monetary measures, another one is non-monetary measures. When consumption spending is handled, then it is non-monetary. When it is implied with the bank rate, open market operations, stock market, based on that, if they try to control the inflation, then it is monetary measures. Now we are going to the application of inflation. One of the main, well, you can have this particular question: what is Phillips curve, and how to explain the Phillips curve, they may ask. 1 minute. Hello. Very good morning. Actually, I am in online class. Shall we talk after 15 minutes? Actually, Augustine William Phillips He's a New Zealand, he's an economist from New Zealand. He have published one particular article, research article. In that, he tried to explain the relation between unemployment rate and the money wages. Later, it became the relation between inflation and unemployment. This particular article was published in 1955. The journal name is Econometrica. This particular Econometrica have give room how this inflation and unemployment are related. You can see the final line. This is his words. There will be an explicit link between inflation and unemployment. When inflation was high, the unemployment was low, and vice versa. So when you correct the unemployment problem, it is easy to handle the inflation. For that, he have taken nearly 96 years of data from 1861 to 1957. What has happened to the wage level? What has happened to the unemployment level? He just run the correlation between these two elements, and finally he got one particular concept called there will be a inverse relationship between the inflation rate and unemployment rate. In order to handle the inflation, you can correct the unemployment, automatically the inflation will be corrected. This is the impact that he found in that world economy. For that, he have used number of things. One of the main thing in 1970s, Nehru means non-accelerating inflation rate and employment. This is what Phillips have said. When you start controlling the unemployment, when you solve the problem on unemployment, it is easy to handle the inflation. So he said Nehru means non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. What happened? John Maynard Keynes, James Keynes, American economist, he just changed the name. Instead of saying non-accelerating, it is a natural rate of unemployment. When you say, definitely it will be a correct word, because the Phillips have given both what will happen in the short run and what will happen in the long run. Both are, there is no difference, but Keynes have rightly pointed out the Phillips curve is the right concept, but it should be applied in a different manner. Instead of saying non-accelerating inflation, it is better to say natural rate of unemployment, and he explained with this particular diagram. The first dark blue line and a light blue line is a short run Phillips curve. Suppose in 1950 that is one Phillips curve. The second Phillips curve is 1970. What he said, this particular Phillips curve is applicable for short run, but when you go for the long run, the demand curve or inflation rate curve will be a vertical line parallel to the inflation rate. What is that? When there is in a long run, if you calculate the unemployment rate and inflation rate, there won't be any connection at all. This is possible with the inflation, that is Phillips curve only, because Phillips have rightly pointed out there is an inverse relationship between the inflation and unemployment. So it is sloping downwards from left to right. But when you calculate for a long run, definitely it is not a downward sloping curve from left to right. It is perpendicular to the unemployment rate, or it is parallel to the inflation rate. John Maynard Keynes have rightly pointed out the initial short-run Phillips curve is a downward sloping curve from left to right. The point move from A to B. Even though there will be an expansionary policy, anti-inflationary measure, either by monetary measure or non-monetary measure, the Nehru, that is non-accelerating inflation rate and unemployment, will be a downward sloping curve from left to right. But when you consider long run, instead of saying 10 years, if you take 50 years, when we compare the unemployment rate and the inflation rate, definitely the natural rate of unemployment only will exist, because there is an oscillation in the inflation rate which never affect the unemployment rate. That's what the John Maynard case is trying to imply. So instead of non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, he changed that Nehru as natural rate of unemployment. Definitely, when you compare the different economy like America, Germany, Japan, Italy, India, you take what John Maynard Keynes says is correct. This is possible only with the Phillips curve. He used the Phillips curve as a tool, and he explained the relationship between the unemployment rate and inflation rate in a right manner. With this, I'm winding up the class. In the next class, kindly write this particular thing as an assignment. I will share the PPT in our WhatsApp group by 9:55. Okay. May God bless you. I am almost completed the syllabus. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. I think you have the number as well as you have the mail ID. May God bless you. All of you type your name in the chat box.